Well, off the back of a Saturday's state election in New South Wales, we turn our focus to agriculture and indeed the pledges that were made by Labor going into it with Xavier Martin, the New South Wales Farmers President. Thanks for joining us, Xavier.
Yeah, good morning, Ricky.
Xavier, look, what Labor promised, I recall among other things, they were stronger in their policy promises on an agricultural commissioner, something that I gather the New South Wales farmers were pretty happy about.
Oh, look, there's a range of commitments that were made by the incoming Premier, Mr Minns, and firstly I want to congratulate he and his team on their victory and thank Dominic Perrottet and his team for their service to the state. New South Wales Farmers has been working with governments and oppositions for more than a century and we'll continue to work constructively with the government and opposition on all the issues going forward. But certainly Mr Minns is in the box seat now to deliver on the commitments he's made. And those commitments are broad-ranging, but certainly the ones across the Biosecurity Commissioner and an independent agricultural commissioner are critical to resolving some of the big ones.
And I notice on that biosecurity front, if I've got this right, there were some further varroa mite detections, not necessarily alarming, but showing the effort continues to be needed in being vigilant on that front. And I think it's fair to say, isn't it, that the former Agriculture Minister, Dougal Saunders, they did a pretty good job of getting on top of that, which could have been devastating across the whole state, indeed this eastern seaboard.
Oh, look, the Perrottet government, and you mentioned Minister Saunders, had a strong track record on delivering on biosecurity investment and performance, and you touched on the varroa mite there. But nevertheless, there's a whole range of issues around biosecurity. Firstly, that whole paradigm shouldn't be reliant on holding its breath every annual budget to see what is going to be funded. It needs to be a shared effort with not just all of us as farmers and community in the landscape, but a commitment from the Treasury, from the taxpayer, to underwrite the effort that's required. And one of the big examples at the moment is this desire by the state and by the nation to move towards an electronic ID scheme for sheep and goats. You know, that farmers need the support to get that theory into practice. You know, that we've put in place a whole lot of principles that we expect around that system, and government needs to fund it. So biosecurity is going to be a key going forward, and we look forward to engaging with Minns around that, around whoever the new Ag Minister is.
Now, on that electronic traceability front on sheep and goats, whilst they have that in place in Victoria, there does seem to be some squabbling, maybe even between the states, about how much each of them contributes to that. Are you confident that the New South Wales government, the Minns Labor government, will stump up the money to help so that farmers aren't ending up severely out of pocket from implementation?
Oh, look, I think both the federal and state governments around the nation understand that if it's such a good idea for the nation to transition to this new technology, that it needs to be a shared responsibility and that it needs to be funded. So I'm optimistic that they will appreciate what we're putting forward, and the principles that New South Wales Farmers has been advocating, we will stand by them and extend those to all the decision makers going forward.
And as you say, New South Wales farmers have been in the advocacy game for well on a century. Now, when it comes to getting a Labor government to understand the challenges, I'm thinking over in Western New South Wales and feral pig numbers, it's a long way from anywhere Labor holds a seat. Do you think you're going to be able to get them to buy the argument that this is important for the state's biosecurity and indeed food production systems?
Oh, look, I think the Minns government understands that agriculture is an absolute dynamo when the settings are right, and it drives the state's economy. And I think they also understand that it's the basis of human existence, that you've got to have food and clothing. So when they see the significant challenge that ferals, many descriptions are putting on that healthy plants and healthy animal production, and whether it's pigs or deer or whatever it is, that it needs to be responded to, not just from a biosecurity perspective, but from a farm productivity and economic perspective. I'm optimistic that they will see that there is a need share that responsibility and get stuck into control, in your example, wild pigs.
And just lastly, we did chase during the election campaign the shadow, now probably the Water Minister, Rose Jackson, about the subject of buybacks. She said, and we've got her on record, she sees buybacks as an absolute last resort in New South Wales. I mean, that'd be music to your ears and something you'd maybe want her to have a chat with Tanya Plibersek about, I imagine.
Oh, look, it's going to be absolutely critical to pull the dysfunction to account around the Murray-Darling Basin plan. I mean, 2024, next year, is when the states can reset, with the benefit of hindsight, exactly what is required to meet the intentions of the Water Act back in 2008. The reality back in 2008 was it was all based on theory. Now we've had the practice through to 2022, 2023. We can see exactly how it isn't working, and we can make the corrections to adapt to based on that knowledge. And that's going to be what Rose Jackson is going to have to deliver, a sensible and practical outcome for New South Wales water.
Well, that's a good note to finish on. Sensible and practical outcomes. Let's hope that's what unfolds in the next 4 years under Labor in New South Wales. Xavier Martin is the President of the New South Wales Farmers. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks very much, Ricky.